Hello, everyone. Welcome to week 4 of the fall 2021 BrightFutures Career Speaker Series. The BrightFutures Career Speaker Series is an educational webinar sponsored by the College of Marin, Marin County Office of Education, and the Workforce Alliance of the North Bay. Today's presentation topics will include finding your passion with photography and videography, plus a lot more, and law enforcement. As people are logging on today, I'd like to do a quick round of introductions. My name is Sita Williams, and I work for the Workforce Alliance of the North Bay. Moderating today, we also have Alex Jones from the College of Marin. Presenting today, we have Trevor Henley from Desire to Inspire Studios Foundation and Josie Sanguinetti from a school resource officer from Marin County Sheriff's Office. Before we get started with today's speakers, I'm going to do a quick round of housekeeping so we're all on the same page throughout the webinar. We will be recording the webinar. So why offer a career speaker series? Well, first, we'd like to introduce you to some of our local professional experts. We'd like to introduce you to jobs that you may not have heard about before, and we'd like to help you to make informed decisions about the next steps on your career path, whether you're a student or a job seeker. What to expect today. The presentation hour will include introductions, like we're doing right now, speaker presentations, and then question and answer time. Please use the chat or Q&A function of the webinar to ask your questions. We will repeat the questions out loud to the speakers. Here's our webinar series schedule. You can pick and choose from the topics that interest you, but please join us for as many weekly programs as you can. And if you get inspired today by one of our speakers and would like to explore educational or training programs in the areas of law enforcement or photography and videography, I will send this list of Bay Area educational programs out to you in a follow-up email. It's not a comprehensive list, but it's a place to start your research if you haven't started already. And if you would like help finding a job, please contact one of the America's Job Centers near you. If your local region isn't listed here, please email me after the webinar and I'm happy to find a contact number for you in your local area. I'll make sure to email this PowerPoint out to you after the webinar. And if you have any questions after the program, please email either me or Alex. I'll be sure to put our contact information in the chat. And with that, I will hand the mic over to you, Alex.
Thank you, Sita, and welcome everybody. But yeah, no, I figure let's just get started. Trevor, we'll tee off with you. If you wanted to share briefly, your current occupation, your journey, everything, whatever you feel impelled to share, please start it off.
Well, thank you very much, Alex, and thank you very much, Sita, for this opportunity. And I'm excited to be here with Josie, and I'm excited to hear her presentation as well. Is this the half-hour part that you'd like me to go over, or just the Cliff Note version at the moment?
Oh, right now you can actually, if you wanted to start off with like I know you have a PowerPoint. If you want to start off with that, then we can kind of leave it open for questions and answers, whatever groove you're feeling right now.
Perfect. I will then get this started real quick and hit play. So again, my name is Trevor Henley, Desire to Inspire Studios Foundation. I'm gonna play a couple little clips for you, and I didn't hit share audio, so hold on, I run so many of these things and I still always forget to do that. So one more time, play a couple of clips just to hopefully get things excited here.
When going on these Marin IJ shoots or any college students are still trying to figure out how not to have ramen every day. That's
So we're going to go over our mission statement, our vision statement, our core values of who we are, our program purpose, our target demographics, and then my career path. And this is kind of boring because it's word for word, and I apologize for that, but it's important because it sets the tone of who we are in our story. Desire to Inspire Studios Foundation empowers people to pursue their passion of photography and videography as a career by giving back to their community through nonprofit work. I'll go through our vision, and our vision is to have a studio in every country, empowering our youth and creating the common bond throughout the world of people helping people through amazing visual storytelling. And I was going to read this, but it's really long, so if you want to see it, it's on our website. And then a real quick message from someone we may know. And this is the premise of who we are, what I'm about, and our organization.
My name is Mark Ibanez. I'm the sports director at KTVU Channel 2, #1 station in San Francisco for many, many years. And I cannot understate how important internships are. And I was so happy to hear that they do that here, because let me tell you what, my broadcast career, 42 years, would not have happened. I can say that confidently to you, without an internship. And most of the professionals that I know in the industry all got their starts with internship programs. Internship programs cannot be devalued at all. Very important. And I suggest to all young people, it's one of the first things that comes out of my mouth, try and get an internship in whatever field or endeavor you plan to go into, because it gives you a glimpse of what your future might be.
So our goal is to give people a low risk, high impact opportunity to gain life experience, build emotional intelligence, and to give back to their community while pursuing their passion in life as a career. Our demographics, I've been fortunate to be doing photography for, well, it's 22 years now, but in business and working with interns and youth. And really it's youth between 14 and 25, high school students that are looking for a career and life skill development opportunities, and marginalized and neurodiverse youth who feel alone. This is the fun part. I'm going to talk about my career path and my journey. So going back to my childhood, when I was growing up, I was often bullied. I was picked on for standing up for who I believe in. I was put down for thinking differently than others. I remember specifically one day in 5th grade running from a group of 12 of my peers. They were chasing me, and I knew that if I got caught, I was going to get beat up. I was going to be kicked. And this day, they actually caught me. I slipped and fell in the mud, and I had 12 of my peers dogpiling me and hitting me, yelling me, and kicking me. And I just remember laying there, and I remember laughing hysterically, because this is how one person decided, because of one person's view, a group of people decided to put someone else down in order to make themselves feel better. I've always been my own person. I've always beat to my own drum. I was suspended in kindergarten. I was suspended all the way through middle school. And then in junior year in high school, I finally figured out the secret to success. And it was to TA with the assistant principal and be the guy that was handing out the referral slips, which a lot of my peers just went, dude, that's not okay. And I was like, it is for me. I'm finally not in trouble. But school wasn't the biggest and the best path for me. For me, school was a resource for social, for sports, really. At one point, I had a 0.5 GPA. And my teachers and my counselor said, you got to work hard to get a 0.5. But it was because they told me that I needed a 2.0 to be able to play baseball, that I figured it out and got a 3.5 in order to average out a 2.0. Speaking of my junior year in high school, I fell into a photography class as a scheduling error. And people often ask me how it got started. Well, I was trying to take drawing class. I was trying to follow my dad's footsteps. He's been drawing his handwritten cards and hand-drawn cards since 1972. And at best, and still at best, now my 5-year-old actually behind me, this little image that you see, is about equivalent of how well I draw. But I got placed into this photography class as a scheduling error, and I ended up grabbing my dad's 1972 Nikkormat camera, fully manual, everything about it. I took 3 photos of a varsity football game at night, and the yearbook decided to use my 3 photos over all the photographers and all of the rolls of film, yes, film, that had been taken game after game through the entire season. And I went, well, that's kind of cool. I then went to Germany about 2 weeks after starting the class, and I brought back a photo album of all the photos I took in print form. And people kept asking me, like, why did you buy so many postcards? And at the time I was upset. I didn't understand. I was like, no, I took these. And then finally someone said, Trevor, it's a good thing. And I said, why is that? And I said, it means you could sell your work. And I don't know if you've seen, I don't call them Minions, it's Groot. What is it? Despicable Me, and the light bulb goes on, it goes light bulb. So I had this idea, well, man, I could do this for a living. That's crazy. I could earn some money at that. And my senior year in high school, I did all the photography at Centerville High School. I did all of the sports photos, all of the group photos, all the candid photos, everything but the school portraits. And at the end of the year, I went to my yearbook teacher because I was going to go to College of Marin, or a University of Kentfield, as I called it, because my parents wanted me to and they were making me. But I asked my teacher, I was like, where do I go getting a job doing photography? And she's like, I don't know, ask the yearbook guy. And I went for what I thought was an interview, but it was my first day of training. He said, I already know you can take a photo. I just need to know if you can take it my way. So he sat me in front of a senior, actually he sat a senior in front of me, said, make her head fit in the circle, make her smile, and click the camera at the right time. And I did, it was fun. And I was moved to head photographer the very first year I started doing school portraits, because I was taking double the amount of people. I was getting all my head sizes correct, and everybody was smiling, except for those troubled kids like me that were in school. And they had horrible photos because I did it on purpose. If I couldn't get them to smile, which most of them I did, I would take a really bad photo because the school wouldn't allow it, and they would have to come back during retake day. One of the things I loved while doing school portraits is that there was a couple of weeks where I never said a word to any of the students that I was taking photos. And I had lines of kids out taking photos, and whereas the other photographers had nobody going, because I was having fun. I was learning, I was engaging with people. I was learning how to make other kids smile from the heart without even saying a word. And it was hilarious. I also had like neon pink hair. I had designs in my hair. It was crazy. Also, right out of high school, I was doing my own painting, interior residential and commercial painting business. And I would go into homes and I'd paint their houses or paint their rooms. And I pretty much kind of got over that when I got hired to paint the outside of this guy's house, and it was covered in cactus. And I went, I don't get paid enough for this. But so I was always running my own business, starting actually all the way back to 14, working in a deli and working as a handyman. But we'll move forward. So through my school program of doing school portraits, I also did my own architectural photography. I did worked at the Picture People in the mall, making infants smile. I did a lot of dance photography at the time. And I always worked as another job on top of it. I worked as a server, and because it was entertaining to me and it was fun. So I often worked 3 different jobs, worked an equivalent of about 14 hours to 16 hours a day. And it was all fun for me, and I loved doing it. And the moment I never liked a job, I left, or I gave them the opportunity to give me what I wanted. And usually that didn't happen because I don't fit well into corporate structure. But at the end of that 6 years of working on my own, fast forward to 2004, 05, I moved to Tahoe with the idea that I'm going to do anything and everything I want to do. And if I survive, great. Luckily, I survived. During that 5.5 month period, to just kind of truncate this, is I lost 65 pounds. I partied my butt off. I threw 3 to 5 parties a night, a week, and 3 to 5 parties a week at my house, 100 to 300 people, did a ton of drugs, drank a ton of alcohol, thought I was having what I call the best time of my life I'll never remember. But what I realized is I was really hitting my bottom, and I was trying to escape from my emotions and how I felt about how the world had treated me and my role in the world at that point. I didn't really know what my purpose in life was. But the harder I partied, the harder I realized I was hitting bottom. At the end of that 5.5 months, I was homeless. I racked up $35,000 of debt. I left in that unhealthy situation, and I decided that I'm going to do something that I want to do because I survived. And I wanted to travel the coast of California. And I got in my truck, I grabbed what possessions I could, and drove down the coast of California. And I ran out of gas in Moss Landing. Fortunately, I landed in a place that I actually knew someone, and I had 2 people that kind of gave me a helping hand up. One person I had actually met during Tahoe, and I had painted some houses for him that I have no recollection of. And he gave me a little job gutting his sailboat and allowing me to work the 3 to 4 hours I could stand a day working on a sailboat, and give me a little bit of cash to help me get through. The other one that helped me and gave me a helping hand up was a local fish market. They kind of realized where I was at. They realized I was trying. They realized I was in a hard place. And they often gave me what was often my 1 meal a day, which was fish that they couldn't sell, but wasn't bad. And they said, here, eat. And I did. During that 6-month period of being homeless, I, for the first time, was able to use my brain. Actually, I had to use my brain. I physically couldn't walk anymore for more than 4 hours. I couldn't stand for more than 4 hours. I had torn rotator cuff, seized lower back. I had, like I said, recovering from losing 65 pounds. And I took inventory of why I was alive. What is my purpose on this earth? Why do I have guardian angels? And I realized there's 2 things that I'm really good at. One is creating common bonds in people where there aren't common bonds already. I was really good at that, throwing parties, getting people together that didn't want to get together, and said, hey, you're all here to party and have a good time, so can't we just get along in that regard? And that worked out pretty well. In the school portrait world, I was able to create common bonds between myself, this guy that was taking a photo that typically is horrible, and a student that doesn't want to take a photo in the first place, and making a really good experience. So I grabbed Business Plans for Dummies. I didn't understand most of what I read, but I read all the way through it, and then I wrote out my business plan. And it was to create a studio anywhere I wanted to go, teach people how to do portraits, and then be able to run the studios remotely so that other people could pursue their passion of portrait photography. Okay, sounds great. So I started Henley Photography in 2006, and I went in to, I started my business. I didn't know where my next client was coming from. Didn't know where my next meal was coming from. And I just went full tour. I couldn't work for someone else. I'd already had experience knowing that that wasn't going to work. I couldn't get out of debt if I was going to work for someone else. And I went into it and I said, I got this. And then I started doing my business, and I realized I knew absolutely nothing about running a business above table and a legitimate business with other legitimate business people. And very fortunately, in the beginning, I started doing a lot of nonprofit storytelling work, people asked me to do photos and I said, well, can you pay me? And they're like, no, we're a nonprofit. And I was like, can you feed me? They're like, yes. And I was like, yay, that's one checkbox off my list for today that I'm going to get done. And I just moved forward like that. And I asked a lot of stupid questions. One of my favorite ones was I was part of this group and I asked, hey, I have a business location. Should I put that on my business card? And people were like resoundingly, yes. And I went, okay, fine. So I asked a lot of, perfect. So I asked a lot of questions and I learned, but right away I got started with hosting interns, and the Santa Fe High School said, hey, you're an alumni. Do you want to host an intern? I was like, what's an intern? Because I didn't know about internships in high school. I didn't know that there was opportunities for people to teach me how to do photography, how to do videography, how to run a business. And I started running internship programs with the idea of, I'm going to try and teach you photography and or not video at the time, just photography. But really what I'm going to teach you is how to put your hands out in front of your face. So when when you hit that moment in life, hopefully you've got someone else's experience so that you do put your hands out in front of your face and you don't rub your face off on the asphalt, as I did many, many, many times. So I know we're going to go into a couple of questions. Fast forward, 2016, I started Desire to Inspire Studios, LLC, with the idea, and the mission statement was that there's so much more we could do together than we could ever do on our own. And I'd worked with so many other photographers that had such a scarcity mindset that they would take anything and everything under the sun. And the idea was to get people together and do the work that they love doing the most within the industry of photography. And it worked really well. We were growing, and then pandemic 2021 started, or 2021. I skipped a year, like many of us want to. 2020 happened and all of our business went away. And our team of 3 people at the time just sat down and said, well, how long do we have? And we all had about a month and a half of funds reserved before we needed to make another dollar. And we all said, well, why are we in this in the first place? And it was really to tell stories of people helping people and to teach people how to do that. And so Desire to Inspire Studios Foundation was formed. The mission of Desire to Inspire Studios is to empower people to pursue their passion of photography and videography as a career by giving back to their community through nonprofit work. And we went out during the pandemic and just told stories of how nonprofits were affected, for-profits, just people, how they were affected, what help they needed, what help they were giving, because it was often different than what their mission was, and just creating community through storytelling. And now it's only a year and a half later, but we have embarked on so many crazy things and grown dramatically, and we're growing more. And I think now might be a good time for questions, since that was probably longer than the 2 minutes you had asked for.
No, that was perfect. You that was perfect, right on time. So a quick question. I was curious. So post-pandemic now, and you mentioned, like, you know, at one point when the pandemic hit, everything kind of shut down. Mm-hmm. What is that looking like now for like students who might be interested in like photography and videography? What does that space look like now post-pandemic? Are the jobs coming back? Just kind of curious what the labor market looks like.
Well, jobs, I mean, it depends on what industry in your realm. What I can answer is from what we've done. We've exploded as a result of the pandemic in a good way. So I shouldn't say exploded, probably is not the right word, but we've grown dramatically. We've hosted over 24 internships between high school students, college students, and also adults and other professionals that have come through our program, our 100-hour apprentice program. And I will say this in the short answer to what you asked. If I believe fully, where there's a will, there's many a ways. So if someone wants to do photography or videography or any industry for that matter, if they have a strong enough will, there is work out there, and there is more than enough work for anybody that wants it. Now, who's hiring? That may be a different story. But if people are interested in pursuing their passion, that's part of what our internship program is to give them experience in the administration, the production, the editing, the actual taking of the photos and marketing, so that at the end of their program, they go, hey, I love this. I could do this on my own. Or, hey, I like this one aspect. Can I be an employee? Or, hey, y'all are nuts. I want to go be the sheriff, right? Like it's awesome in that regard. So I think that there's lots of jobs out there, and it's just changing, and it's still changing too much right now to tell what's going to be happening.
And there's a question in the box. What research did you do to prepare for this role? I want to expand on that a little bit too. Let's say if a person is, interested in like photography, interested in internship, should they take the class? Should they just dive into the internship? Like, what would that process kind of look like? How should they approach it rather?
Yeah, I think the easiest way is to go. We get most of our high school interns through the school to career programs. So talking to your counselor at the school would be a great start. If not, just start asking lots of questions, but really take the classes if there is classes offered in your school. A lot of times right now, they're kind of media classes. So they cover everything from AutoCAD drafting for architecture to video production to photography to illustration. And so it's a great overview of a lot of different a lot of different industries in this industry. That's a great sentence anyway, but you get where I'm going with that. And then our internship, the way we built it is to say, if you're available and you want to do the work presented, say yes. So our internship is completely flexible with hours, times, responsibilities. We are pretty much operating close to 20 hours a day, some of us, but we're always doing something, and there's always opportunities to learn and grow. And if not, we make up programs that fit the students' want and give them a structure to go do it.
And another question that's in the box in the chat here is, what does a typical day look like at your job? I think also for you, and maybe even for like the interns, what does a typical day look like for them?
Yeah, so I'm going to combine that with Franklin's other question, if that's all right. As far as research, so what's the right way to say this filtered? I am a stubborn mule. I have learned by plowing forward, running into a brick wall, bashing my head through that brick wall, and figuring out if I could, or if I needed to go around it, or maybe that brick wall was too big. So I am not one for research. However, now I've grown our team and they are a little bit more for research. So I can answer that in the research I didn't. Yeah, school of life, exactly, Sita. And then a typical day. So we have different roles. We have 5 employees currently. I'm the executive director. We have our operations director. We have a programs and production director, our director of videography, and then we have a photographer. So I was actually going to play a video that I recorded one day, but it's 2.5 minutes long, and that's no fun. But a typical day for me is developing relationships, asking people and clients and potential clients what their biggest struggle is right now, what their biggest goal is in life. How can we help, whether it's through work that we do or resources that we have to refer them? That is one of the biggest things that I do as far as like client development and relationship. But I also do that within our team. My role as executive director is to just touch base with everybody on our team saying, hey, how are you doing today? How's life? Part of our core values is life first. For us, if you've flown on a plane, you should get this analogy. Put the oxygen on yourself before you can help someone else. And for us, if someone just messages us and says lifing, we go, do you need any help? Do you need any resources, or do you want us to leave you alone and you'll check back with this when you can? And that has been a huge key to our growth and just dealing with a day-to-day aspect of living in this pandemic and post-ish pandemic world. For our production team, it's managing clients' expectations, communication back and forth, scheduling, using our Google Calendar, using Asana, using Slack to communicate in between our team and our clients, to going out and shooting, doing our video shoots, setting up a 2 or 3 camera production unit, having our interns come and shadow us, figuring out where they're at and what roles that they can take on. our operations director is basically, the way that we've described it is, she catches all the fires and figures out what she can put out and what she can delegate. Because I pretty much start fires all over the place, and opportunities is what we call fires. And yeah, I should be more specific about words these days, but hey, I've never been one to know with my words. And then our photographer goes out there a lot right now. We do a lot of photo shoots for business clients and nonprofits, but really it's going out there and telling a story in a photograph that depicts who they are, their personality, and what they do as a profession.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you, Trevor, for sharing a little bit about your journey, in your career, and your organization as well. And if any students are interested in possibly interning with Desire to Inspire Studios, we'll make sure to get everybody connected. If you're interested in possibly taking some classes, whether it be at college or in Santa Rosa, or community-based organization or college near your area, we'll definitely connect you with that. But no, thank you so much, Trevor, for checking in with everybody.
Do you mind if I answer Simone's quick question?
What
was the one thing I wish I could have told my 5th grade self in that moment on the ground?
Oh, for sure. Go ahead.
Simone, it was that I'm not alone is the biggest thing that I would have told myself. To know that I was just the most vocal and the most outstanding in that regard. But after that moment, I had so many of my peers come up to me and respect me for standing my ground, that I realized later that I was not alone, and that it was okay to stand my ground and be who I am and live my life the way I want.
Thank you for answering that question, Trevor. Really appreciate it. And thank you so much for coming in and taking time out of your day to check in with everybody. And feel free to stay on. If anybody has any other questions, feel free to put those in the box for Trevor. But I wanted to transition over to Josie and have you kind of kick off the second portion of the speaker series. So whatever you feel compelled to share, go ahead. The floor is yours.
Thank you. I hope that you guys can hear me okay. And I was actually taking notes while Trevor, you can't see that, but while Trevor was talking, because one of the cool things that you said that I really liked is that your job is to create those common bonds. The first thing you said, you work with neurodiverse kids. I have ADHD. It has been an incredibly good thing for my career. It has helped me in so many ways to multitask, to be able to relate with kiddos. And before I get too far into the weeds, I guess I should explain why I can talk to y'all. So I've been a deputy sheriff for the last 19 years. As of September, I will be retiring next year. And then I have to figure out what I want to be when I grow up. I got into this job at 21. I passed the tests. They sent me to the police academy, and they started me in the jail. And I was like, I'm going to save the world. I am the product of a somewhat broken home, a very mentally ill father, and a mom that supported us. My dad sold drugs. He was not a good human. And so I learned I didn't really care for law enforcement. He didn't care for law enforcement. Trevor talked about landing in Moss Landing. I grew up in Santa Cruz just by Moss Landing and actually learned to kayak in Moss Landing, and was definitely the kid that danced to the beat of her own tambourine. You talk about you were the guy with pink hair. Well, I've got shaved sides and some long sleeves on because we can't show our tattoos. And I always have a manicure. I always have some type of something going on. And I just didn't fit the square peg, the square hole, none of that stuff. It just didn't really work. I was more like glitter and kind of like a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. It just nothing really fit. And so I found that law enforcement was a total accidental career. I was working as a firefighter EMT because college was not for me. Sitting still and being quiet, very difficult. This is actually, I have a nice big fat cup of coffee because caffeine calms me down so I can sit still and watch a presentation and I'm not pacing around. But I was that obnoxious kid that was like, clapping her hands and thumping her knee and doing all that in class. And so I was working as a firefighter EMT, and a person that I was dating at the time was in the police academy. I met one of his companions in the academy and he goes, "Hey, we're hiring for females. are you strong? I was like, dude, I'm a firefighter, and proceeded. We did have a bit of a wrestling match, and I did show him that I was strong. And he said, yeah, we start at 38 bucks an hour. And I went, excuse me? I'm making $7 an hour right now, working 40-hour or 48-hour shifts. You started whole, I'm gonna be there. And I said, what do you guys do? So I came through and I took a jail tour, and I realized that it's really anything that you want it to be when you work in the jail. You have a set schedule of things you have to do, and then everything else, you can talk to people, you can explore other people's life stories, you can learn a ton of stuff that's very different maybe from what you've had growing up. I loved it. I stayed in the jail for a couple of years, and then I did what we call transportation or fugitive recovery. I got to fly all over the place to go bring back people that had warrants for their arrest. In Boston, I got to appear in a courthouse that looked very much like Law and Order, with big mahogany benches and really fancy judges, and I was getting paid for it. And then you get to hear the stories of the people on your flight back home or on your drive back home or wherever you were. So that was pretty cool. And then I realized I just didn't like being indoors anymore. It's more of a free range chicken. And so I transferred out to patrol. I've been on patrol since then. I worked in personnel. So if anyone has any questions about the hiring process or the background process, please feel free to plop them in there. If not, also my email can go in there, and I'm happy to answer questions offline, because that was literally my job. I got paid to be nosy and dig into people's backgrounds and wash out the people that would make law enforcement make the news. And then after doing that for a little bit, again, I was indoors. It was not my thing. And so went back out, and I've worked every beat that we've had. I've worked graveyards in, busy areas on weekend nights. I've worked the coast when it's stormy and have never been busier in my life. I mean, I've done a little bit of everything. And then in August of 2016, this school resource officer position came open. And before, it was a one deputy assignment for 4 years at a time. And the first time it came around, I had just had my kiddo. And so I waited and I put in for it. There's a panel interview, and you basically plead your case why you're the right person for the job, because they trust you with children. And aside from carrying a gun, you're entrusted with children and all kinds of things that come with them. And so I got the gig, and then I realized that it was exactly what I was supposed to do. I started a mentorship program through, one of my kiddos that I had in the youth academy, which is our version of the school to career internship program, actually basically told me she was going to start a mentorship program. So I kind of rolled with it and realized that was cool. I had just empowered a kid who reminded me a lot of me. She was kind of a front lawn kid, a little bit of the shaved head, clothes were a little too baggy. And she's like, yeah, people need to actually kind of understand what's going on in cop world, because, but spoiler alert, people don't like cops, just FYI. And so it was a really cool thing to kind of see that I could take programs within the confines of the schools and develop it. Squirreling back a little bit, I work 40 to 60-hour work weeks, depending. When times were pre-COVID, it was a lot closer to that 60-hour work week. I run our diversion program. If a kid gets cited, we try to keep them. We do everything we can to keep kids out of the criminal justice program. I've done everything from give kids assignments to read to dogs at the Humane Society to, we usually try to get kids to reflect and work on the restorative side of things. We teach life skills sometimes. So if you have kiddos that are super disrespectful, but very, very well provided for, there's a lot of courses and a lot of areas in figuring out how much you would make if you had a minimum wage job, and how much does that phone cost, and how much do those shoes cost, and how much does it cost to fix all the stuff that you screwed up, that sort of thing. So I enjoy the focus on learning and helping people be successful grown-ups. And then one of the other things that we have, and I will kind of squirrel back to the internship program, but one of the other things that we have is we have an opportunity to do a lot of different things within the sheriff's office. And like Trevor was saying, if you're good at something, or if you have a passion for something, we really do have a small enough department where you can shine. Conversely, if you're kind of lame at something, we do have people that would be like, hey, maybe that wasn't your best goals. Maybe that wasn't your best work. Let's try something else, because that was just real awkward and that was just real yucky. So it's a very cool career, because there are a lot of pathways to go. In one thing that I always like to bring up, because I normally get asked this question, is what is it like to be a female in law enforcement? And I identify as female. I have she, her pronouns. I've been doing this since I was the only female on a team or on a shift, to now where we've got a ton of females. And it's always been very interesting because this is one of the few jobs where I've had to pass the same tests as everybody else. Everybody that comes through has to pass the same tests. Everybody that comes through has to be able to demonstrate the same abilities. And so it's a very level playing field to get into this job. And I really liked that. That was something that tremendously appealed to me, because once I got in, I realized that everybody has strengths and weaknesses. And like, for example, I have had to do it, but I am not a very good negotiator. I had to negotiate with a gentleman with a gun around his neck for 2 hours because I happened to be the one he wanted to talk to and fixate on, even though we had our whole freaking hostage negotiation team there. He was like, no, I like you. And I was like, this is not what I'm wired for, buddy. But you work through it, you adapt, you overcome, you go through it. Conversely, several of our deputies absolutely detest talking to children. I love it because kids are blindingly honest. I will walk into a school and see a kid that I haven't seen in a month, and he'll be like, your hair's weird. I don't like it. Did you get new lotion? You smell funny. And like, I absolutely take joy in that. Same thing with the college kids that you see where they're like, girl, what are you wearing? It's like, I just bought these. They're like, no, it's not cute. It's like, okay, but you know where you stand. And I love that so much because people lie to the cops. And so it's very, very refreshing sometimes to work with kids that are like, no, I don't like that. That's stupid. Go away. That's lame. Not going to do it. So I realized that I squirreled around a lot, but I did lead with the fact that I have ADHD. And so I want to bring it back to just a couple little things. Pay. Everybody likes to hear how much we make. It's published in the news, and I don't care. People can know all that stuff. We start out at about $37 an hour. You go to the police academy, you come back, you go all the way up to 57 and change an hour. I have medical benefits that cost me $5. When I had my child to go to the hospital, cost me $17 because I bought 2 sandwiches. That was it. I have experienced, one second. My child is doing a dance in the background. See, I just had to parent. One of the things that I find so entertaining with this is that everybody thinks that we make this incredible amount of money. We do make decent money. I can't afford to live in Marin. I couldn't afford to purchase a home in Sonoma County now. I couldn't afford to purchase a home most places now, but I do have good benefits. I do have the ability, and especially when I started, to work a lot of overtime because we are short staffed. And I could squirrel away money because I too began my adult life in a lot of debt. I was like, this credit card thing is cool. Nobody had really taught me how to use that or the checkbook. And I just kind of kept spending, and they kept telling me it was okay. So one of the other cool things about this career is that it does teach you, if you have some bumps and lumps along the way, it does teach you kind of how to be more humble, have some more humility when dealing with the public. And it does remind you, as Sita said, the school of life. It does remind you that we're all stuck in this school of life, and we all have to work together to get through it and get out. And as COVID has hit, in looking at what you had asked about challenges in the profession, let's go before COVID. We'll just call out the elephant in the room with George Floyd, with Breonna Taylor, with so many very negative, highly publicized interactions that law enforcement has had. It's really presented a unique, both challenging, unique opportunity for us to be able to take really straightforward, really hard-hitting questions. And I love that, again, with working with kids and with working with young adults, is that we get peppered with very aggressive, very in-your-face questions because people want answers and people want to know. And it's really cool that we are given, both from work and from kind of our own careers, we're given the autonomy to answer those questions. And sometimes if the answer is unsatisfactory, it's really cool to be able to say, yeah, this really sucks, doesn't it? Here's how we can go about changing some stuff. Here's what training looks like. What do you think we should do? How does this kind of resonate? And to get the community involvement. And then when everybody started kind of going COVID crackers, where they were just locked down and too much family time, and domestic violence incidents increased and people just didn't have the coping skills, a lot of times we were getting called as law enforcement to really mediate and to really interject ourselves into people's lives that they wouldn't have necessarily wanted us to. And so it's been a really interesting opportunity to see that shift over the last 19 years. I mean, it's been half my life that I've been in this career, to see how things are vastly different than when I first started. I feel like I've hit a lot of random things. And I would love it if anybody has any questions too. I didn't have the chat up to see, but I did see that there was a jurisdictional question. And so Highway Patrol, Sheriff's Office, and PD is one of my favorite questions because nobody knows. And I didn't really know when I got involved. I was like, I look better in green. And I know people that are deputies and I prefer to do my own stuff. So that's really the difference. Jurisdictionally, Sheriff's Office cover unincorporated areas. There are some areas on like Alameda del Prado, for example, we'll have 1 or 2 houses on the street. Novato PD has jurisdiction on the rest, and it's just where they were incorporated into the city/county. As far as Highway Patrol is just that. They handle vehicular things on the highway and the roadways surrounding, park and rides, etc. And then it gets unique because we work in tandem with everybody. And so if Highway Patrol, say, has a fist fight in a vehicle and the person driving is drunk, they'll deal with the drunk driving and the poor driving, and we'll come and we'll deal with the altercation in the vehicle. So we really have to work together. They handle all the vehicle accidents for us, but for the police departments, the cops at the police departments handle their own vehicle accidents. So it's a lot of juggling, and it's just a lot of where people are. For us, our patch says county, so I can go do job in San Rafael PD's jurisdiction because they're part of county. But San Rafael PD isn't going to necessarily go out to Point Reyes and do anything that's in our land unless they have a suspect, et cetera, out there. And there is a saying, one deputy, one riot. Let me tell you, working Bolinas on graveyards, that's a real true statement because my cover officer, my partner, sometimes is an hour and a half away. So if I have a bar fight at Smiley's, I'm going in there and I'm going to have to talk my way through it, or I'm going to have to throw some bar stools around, and stuff could get dicey. And it has. I've definitely had my share of random ridiculousness. We'll just call it that. Since Trevor censored himself rather eloquently, I'll go with that. But you really see what you're made of, and you really see how to communicate with people when you're in that position. One, and then I'll kind of end with this and answer questions if there are any. Our youth academy is the best way to access it is through that school to career liaison. Greg Davison, I know, does through TAM, and we did get approval. I just found out last week that we're going to have it. Starts in February. It's 2 days a week, 2 hours a day. I have space for 16 kiddos. Basically, what we do is we kind of follow the timeline or the trajectory of a call for service. So we start the first day with me explaining, I love to do this, and I encourage every kiddo to do this. I love to say, hey, who knows their rights? Because one of the first things that people tell us is, I know my rights, usually followed by, my mom's a lawyer, or something along those lines, which is great. We're in Marin, everybody's a lawyer. But when push comes to shove, people don't actually know their rights. So we spend that first hour. That's what the kids' first impression of me is this random lady who's telling them, you don't have to talk when a cop pulls you over, but you do have to do da 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 da. And you don't have to do this, but these are the things you're required to do. So it's like this very open, candid conversation. And then it just builds from there. So then we have dispatch come in. We have a dispatch supervisor, and we actually put the kids kind of in the hot seat. And we practice taking calls, and it's really cool to see how people react if someone's yelling at them, or you're throwing, literally sometimes if the kids agree, we'll like throw paper at them, distract them, and hey, you have to stay on topic, and here's the questions you have to ask, and this is what our dispatchers do all day. And then it goes to a patrol deputy and the coroner's division, because we are deputy sheriff coroners and we handle all the deaths within the confines of the county, whether they be suspicious, natural, et cetera, that have to be reported. Then we have our detectives come in. We have our CSI come in. We do defensive tactics, which I've been an instructor since 2008 for use of force. So we talk about tactics. We talk about what we're allowed to do and what we're not allowed to do, and what you do if you see someone doing something wrong, and what the steps are if you see an officer do something wrong versus if you see a civilian do something wrong, and all those different things. And it goes through, so I can't remember how many classes now. I just totally drew a blank, but that's okay. It goes through the first week of May. There's a graduation ceremony. And the first year I did this, I was really, really surprised. Kids brought their parents. This was this really big accomplishment for these kids. Meanwhile, I'm sweating, just trying to make sure that I'm giving them good content. But some of these kids have come back to us. We have one that just texted me the other night. Usually kids get a nickname, and the Fonz is this kid's nickname because he was real like Fonzie from a TV show called Happy Days. Long ago, there was a television program called Happy Days, for those of you that are young. But he's applying with us. I have one of my kiddos that I've stayed in touch with. She checked in with me every single month when she left the academy. I have other kiddos that have come out to me I have a kiddo that's working on transitioning that we started getting some resources for them. Like all these really cool things have come as a result of kids going, I hate cops. I want to see what you guys do. I want to be a probation officer. I want to be a child welfare worker, any of those things. And we cover all of it. And it's it's very much like this, that what you see is what you get with me. We have another deputy, his name's Braden Ross, and he's working now in an SRO capacity. He's great. He's like 6'5" and very soft-spoken, where I'm 5'7" on a tall day and really animated. He's super chill. We balance each other out well. And within the confines of us, kids seem to find some commonalities, find something that they can relate to. In looking at, I want to talk to the culture for a second, because I saw that question in there and I like it. Culture is a huge thing, and there's been a ton of both, I'm trying to think of the right word, sensationalizing in the news, but also just putting to the forefront people recognizing that blue wall of silence or that thin blue line or whatever it is that people think cops hide behind has been really publicized. And I think that one of the amazing things is that it's opened up dialogue with people. And so I know for me, I mean, my husband and I have been together for 12 years. He's seen a huge shift in how we as an agency have to approach things. And I think it's been pretty cool as for us that are boots on the ground deputies, we have been able, and from the word go, we've all kind of held each other in check, which is nice. We all kind of breathed a sigh of relief when a lot of these things happened, that it wasn't any of our people that had done something this heinous, talking about the George Floyd situation, but B, that we all were able to look at each other and go, holy crap, like this is a real thing for a lot of agencies. We're lucky that this isn't quite for us. And then we've taken some extra steps to change certain perceptions and commentary and such. One of the things we did, and I realize it's not specific to BLM, but I'll get there, I promise. I'll chase the balloon back. One of the things is that we actually started a cultural compliance for law enforcement program. Myself and another deputy actually teach it. We were recognized from Senator Evan Lowe we got our whole department trained from the sheriff on down in saying, hey, I'm Josie, my pronouns are she, her, and what would you like me to call you? Simple interactions with those that were under the LGBTQ plus umbrella. And then continuing, we started talking in Marin City. We always had a really good dialogue with the schools and with like the Manzanita Rec and some of the mentors that we have down there. But it built to, okay, here's your experience as a person of color dealing with law enforcement, and here's what it's rooted in, and here's what it's from, and here's me coming from my perspective and talking. We've gone to the youth academy that they have down there. I've stayed in touch with some of the proctors and really gotten a chance to listen. And then we've been fortunate that we can bring it back to the department and say, hey, just because your experience is X, Y, and Z, somebody else's is completely different. And whether it be because I'm loud and I wave my hands around when I talk, or whether it be the subject matter or anything in between, our departments listen, and it's been pretty cool. We've seen a shift. We've seen a lot more cooperation from our deputies willing to listen to people more, especially some of the old school kind of deputies. And then as our younger folks come in as deputies, they're like, hey, this is what I learned in school. This is what we're doing. And we're in no means perfect in any of our anything, because I think perfect is a pretty ridiculous benchmark to say we are. But I would say we're really lucky that we have the tools and we have the communities that are willing to work with us to talk about things and to keep an open dialogue. And that's been, I mean, shoot, stuff's gotten real heated. I have been definitely on the receiving end of a lot of really heated exchanges. And we had a procession of Donald Trump supporters that decided to land in Marin City. And that was a heck of a day to be around hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people. Myself and a couple of partners were walking around Marin City by Best Buy with two very vocally opposing factions and going, hey, this is not our show. Our job is literally to keep people safe, and we aren't going to keep reminding people that, and we're going to make sure that everybody gets a chance to say what they need to say, and we're not going to squish anybody's ability to share their viewpoints in a safe fashion. So that's, I promise I squirreled back to the BLM. I think I squirreled back to the BLM, but if I didn't, please pop another question in there. But to kind of when that movement really came to a head here, it's just opened up a lot of dialogue for us.
And I had a question with with a lot of different like industries and profession, and there's always like a big like workforce shortage. Is that something that's kind of similar within like law enforcement right now, the sheriffs? Is there like a big need, because I also think of like everything that's going on in terms of, like you were saying, how people might view the police, and there's like this stigma attached. I wanted to see if you could speak on that. Like, what does the workforce need look like? And I guess essentially, like, if someone might be interested, you kind of touched on it, like what are some of the, I guess, kind of cultural shifts within the department that might incentivize people who, in the past may not have wanted to, possibly pursue, but let them know, like, hey, look, this is changing in this space. So if you could touch on any parts of that, that'd be great.
Those are really good multifaceted questions. I like a multifaceted question because it makes my brain work. So yes, workforce shortage is tremendous. The amount of overtime we have is crazy high. Some of it's due to injuries. Some of it's due to the fact that we need more deputies. We just really, really do. A lot of the issues that we're seeing surround, I shouldn't say a lot, a medium amount of issues surround drug use, because we do have restrictions. There are rules on past drug use and current drug use, depending on the type of drugs that people have done. There are restrictions on past criminal history, though it's changed a lot, because as a department, we've kind of realized and grown, like, people make mistakes and we have to be able to work through them. There are certain things that are called Brady issues that have to do with honesty and integrity that we can't work through, but we're seeing a lot fewer applicants willing to put themselves in a situation where they know that they're going to get yelled at. They know that people are going to hate them. There's a lot of pressure from, especially the populations, just having gone out and discussed this with people in a couple of our more marginalized communities, i.e. like Marin City, or in our Latino or Latinx communities, is that you don't want to be seen as a traitor. And that's a really big thing. We don't have the tools to tell someone how to overcome that within their heart or within their community, but we're seeing that a lot as far as in talking to people. And I've seen that a lot in talking to kiddos that have come to me and said, hey, I'm interested, but my friends, this isn't good. My family dynamic, this will be a disaster. And so I think for us, and I know with the Youth Academy and with some of the school-based work that we do, we actually are putting that back on the communities and saying, okay, how do we get members of your community to put on a badge? How do we get, you're saying you want representation? Help us, work with us. Just like I did a couple years ago with kids, with going to PTA meetings and stuff and talking to parents and saying, hey, your kids are doing all these things online. Help us explain it to you. Help us do this. Now it's almost like a community thing, and saying, okay, do you want law enforcement to come to meetings and just answer questions? How would you like this to look? How do you want that? Because our entire basis is in partnership with our community. Well, that's all well and good unless we're not talking to the community. So going out and just saying, hey, how do you see yourself represented or not represented, and then what can we do as an agency to try to broaden that, to try to make it more appealing, to try to make it more available, or even just to destigmatize and answer questions. I really believe that answering questions truthfully and fairly, whether it makes us look good or not, is really important to shifting that focus and potentially getting more folks in a law enforcement role, whatever it may look like, CPS, probation, cops, to help. And I think that's where we're kind of migrating towards. I don't know if that answered all your questions.
No, that was perfect. That was absolutely perfect. And we're at time, everybody. And but yeah, no, I wanted to say thank you, everybody. And for the students, everybody on the call right now, or the Zoom right now, I definitely appreciate you sharing these internship opportunities with the students. And also students, just a reminder, like, for all these opportunities, you can still earn college units through the work experience program as well too. So that's something to think about. But if you would like more information about the internships or the academy, feel free to reach out to Cedar, myself, Trevor, and Josie. Would be more than happy to answer questions. But Cedar, I'll let you close this off, and thank you everybody so much. Appreciate it.
So really, I just want to thank Trevor and Josie for participating in our career speaker series this afternoon. Thanks for ending your work day, if it is indeed the end of your day, with us. And we hope you have a really wonderful evening. And thank you for your support of our school to career programs over the many years that you've been engaged with us. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Have a wonderful night. I will hang on the line for any students or job seekers who have any additional questions. Otherwise, good night and have a wonderful evening, everyone.
Thank you guys for having me. That was fun.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.